Hi everyone, my name is Adrienne Helgerson, and today I'll be presenting on the Transtheoretical Model of Change in Counseling. So this presentation will follow this outline. We'll first go over some background and context of this model of change. I'll refer to it as TTM, the Transtheoretical Model of Change, as it's known by. We'll go over some key concepts, go into the research, and how we can apply that in counseling, as well as go over some of the findings and implications. So the Transtheoretical model was developed by James Prochaska and Carlo Di Clemente in the late 70s. And it was to understand how people change behaviors, mostly in relation to like addiction and health-related habits like smoking. This model is now widely used in counseling because it's really helpful in providing this framework of kind of assessing where a client's at in terms of their readiness. And so we can tailor interventions accordingly. There's 6 stages: pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, and termination. We'll go into that more in detail in the next slide. But it kind of just reflects a client's progression from being unaware or unmotivated to change through actively making and maintaining change and achieving a lifestyle that's kind of free from problematic behavior, ideally. So it acknowledges that change is not linear and that clients often will cycle back through these stages before they'll achieve that lasting change. And in the counseling context, TTM is really useful because it really emphasizes meeting clients where they're at. You'll probably hear me saying that a lot throughout this presentation, but I think that's really key. So it helps us develop stage-appropriate strategies like motivational interviewing for those that are in the pre-contemplation stage, or relapse prevention for those in maintenance. And by understanding where they're at, we can more effectively support their behavior and behavior change, and increase their engagement and really help them get some nice long-term success. So TTM has been applied to various counseling issues like substance use and smoking cessation, weight management, and mental health interventions, which shows that it's really versatile and very practical. So the stages of change theory, they start with pre-contemplation, and I'll kind of go over like what an individual in this stage is like. So it'll help you kind of identify that in your practice. So in the first stage, these are kind of people who may appear unmotivated. They don't seem to feel that they need to find a solution to a problem because they don't believe that a problem exists in the first place. They usually have really limited awareness or of the problem, or lack of understanding about the consequences of this behavior. Maybe it's a negative or addictive behavior. The response is not typical because the majority of people will acknowledge that they have an adverse behavior. So this is actually more rare. But it's really important to understand that a person who is in complete denial they'll tend to defend their actions. They present as resistant, unmotivated, unready, unwilling to change. Also, this type of person often obsesses about the negative side of change rather than recognizing the benefits that they would gain. So like the cons outweigh the pros for this person. And so if a pre-contemplator will present in therapy, it's most likely because other people in their life are kind of pushing them to seek help. They're not usually there willingly. So if that pressure to change is no longer present, these people will quickly return to their old habits. So consciousness raising therapy, in addition to changes in life circumstances, can help this kind of person because when these people enter a new stage of their life, they tend to critically evaluate their behaviors and consider if those behaviors are serving them and those around them in a positive way. But until they gain that insight, they'll just remain in the pre-contemplation stage and continue to engage in these adverse behaviors. So people in this stage will have no intention of making a change in the next 6 months. They'll make comments like, I don't see a problem with what I'm doing, so there's no reason to change anything. So the second stage is contemplation, and this stage is marked by awareness and acknowledgement of the problem behavior, and there's serious consideration to change. However, the person is uncertain if the problem behavior is worthy of correcting. However, the person is uncertain if the problem behavior is worthy of correcting. So this internal approach avoidance conflict results in no commitment in taking the necessary steps towards change. So in this stage, it's kind of like the problem sits center stage, but the actor never moves. So it's kind of that ambivalence and indecisiveness that happens in this stage that causes people just to stay stuck in contemplation for at least 6 months. In general, people in this stage are more open about receiving information regarding their behaviors and finding solutions to fix them. They may make comments such as, I know I have a problem and I think I should do something about it. This behavior is also known as chronic contemplation or behavioral procrastination. So that's a more common one. So the next stage, 3, preparation, is kind of at the point in the change process when the person can easily acknowledge that the problem is or the behavior is problematic, and they can make a commitment to correcting it. So there's a real acknowledgement that the pros of change behavior outweigh the cons. So people will begin gathering information from various sources like self-help books and counseling and change-oriented programs as they start to kind of develop a plan of action. So this gathering information is really a vital step in preparation. And if they bypass that, then these individuals tend to plan insufficiently without really considering the significant impact it will have on their lives. And that can kind of cause stumbles to happen and relapse to be more likely. So after appropriate planning is completed, people intend to act in the next 30 days and have usually taken behavioral steps towards that direction over the last year. So it's really common for people in this stage to make comments like, oh, smoking is such a bad habit. I've been reading about different ways to quit. And even though I haven't totally quit yet, I'm smoking less than I did before. So the fourth stage is action, and this is when change really happens. So total abstinence of the adverse behavior is the expectation for a period of fewer than 6 months. So while in this stage, people are gaining the confidence as they believe that they have the willpower to continue on the journey of change. They continue to review the importance of this change while kind of evaluating their commitment to themselves. People in this stage are willing to receive assistance and support. They're open, and developing short-term positive reinforcements in the form of rewards can sustain motivation. Considering potential hurdles to overcome and then developing plans to counteract potential triggers may lead to relapse. That may really lead to relapse is prominent. And during this stage, the most overt changes are kind of acknowledged by the individual and by others. However, the visible changes found in this stage should not be mistakenly equated as the only components of change. Often people mistakenly associate change solely with action, thereby forgoing all the prerequisite work required to act on changing up behavior. So prematurely jumping to the stage without adequate preparation will lead to some difficulty. And an example of a statement of a person in this stage would be, it's easy to say you'll quit smoking, but I'm doing something about it. I haven't smoked a cigarette in 4 months. And the next stage is kind of the last stage. And there is a stage after that, but it's not always included because it's very difficult to achieve. So maintenance is just continuing the new behavior change. And that's the focus of this stage. They've maintained total abstinence from the problem behavior for more than 6 months. So as people progress through the stage, they're more confident in their ability to sustain these positive changes, and they're less tempted or fearful that they're kind of going to relapse. They can maintain the new status quo, and they can remind themselves of the progress that they've made. They may have, thoughts of returning to old habits, but they're pretty good at resisting that temptation and remaining on track because of all the positive strides that they've made. And these people become skilled at anticipating potential triggers that may result in relapse, and they've kind of constructed coping strategies to combat these situations in advance. So typically people in this stage will remain there for anywhere from like 6 months to 5 years. There's a few studies noted here, like a 1990 Surgeon General's report showed that after 12 months of abstinence, about 43% of people returned to their smoking habit. However, it was not until reaching the 5-year mark of abstinence that the risk for relapse dropped to 7%. So people in this stage really require support as they reevaluate their reasons for change, acknowledge the success they've made so far, and considering the potential triggers for relapse and creating those like contingency plans to try to avoid relapse. So termination, the final stage, is not often included in the stages of change because it's really difficult to achieve. It describes a period with zero temptation for relapse and the achievement of 100% self-efficacy. So for the literature review, there's research on the TTM, which really highlight its effectiveness across various counseling settings. Prochaska and DiClemente's foundational work was in the 80s, and it identified the 6 stages of change and showed how behavior change is a gradual and nonlinear process. Their studies really emphasize that matching interventions to a person's stage significantly improves outcomes. And then there's some key studies from Norcross et al. From 2011, which found that stage-matched interventions led to higher success rates in areas like smoking management and or smoking cessation and weight management. Green et al. In 99 demonstrated the model's impact on dietary behavior, and Marcus et al. In 98 showed its effectiveness in promoting physical activity. There's been some recent advancements in integrating TTM with motivational interviewing to enhance readiness and engagement. However, there's been some critiques, like West in 2005 pointed out some limitations, such as reliance on self-reported data and challenges in measuring stages. But overall, it's a powerful and adaptable framework, which is supported by pretty robust research. So the core idea is that change happens in those 6 stages, and individuals move through these stages at their own pace. And change is often nonlinear, meaning clients may move forward or relapse. The key concepts include the processes of change, which are strategies that help clients progress, such as increasing awareness, cognitive processes, or managing triggers, which are behavioral processes. Decisional balance emphasizes weighing the pros and cons of change, and self-efficacy highlights the importance of building confidence in clients' ability to succeed. So for counselors, TTM really allows for those tailored interventions. Like, for example, if you have someone who's in the pre-contemplation stage, the focus is really on raising awareness, while in the action stage, it's about really supporting those concrete steps towards change. And this flexibility really helps counselors really effectively address resistance and kind of foster that lasting change, behavior modification. So the research question is, how does the transtheoretical model enhance counseling outcomes for clients with varying levels of readiness of change? So the rationale behind this question is based on the idea that understanding a client's readiness to change is crucial for effective therapy. And research shows, as we've just kind of reviewed in the lit review, that these stage match interventions increase client engagement and success rates compared to the one-size-fits-all approach. It's relevant because it addresses the needs for personalized, adaptable counseling methods that really respect where clients are in their change journey. And by exploring this, we can just better support clients through meaningful and lasting behavior change. So through the research that we conduct on TTM and also in our counseling practice, there's various ways that we can assess client readiness and progress. Some key instruments include the stages of change, readiness, and treatment eagerness scale, which is kind of funnily called Socrates in abbreviations, which measures motivation and readiness to change. We also can use self-report surveys to capture client perceptions and experiences and behavioral observations to track progress through the stages. These tools are used in this context because they are reliable and there's relevance in understanding clients' stage of change and tailoring these interventions accordingly. So we kind of use a mix of self-assessments and observational data to get that comprehensive understanding of how clients engage with stage-matched counseling strategies. So the procedure involves several key steps to ensure effective implementation of the TTM. So first, you need to do those initial assessments to determine the client's current stage of change. And based on this assessment, you design stage-specific interventions, like motivational interviewing for those in contemplation stage, or action planning for those who are in the action or planning phase, ready to take steps towards change. And throughout this process, we use regular check-ins to monitor progress and reassess our clients' stages. And this kind of helps you adjust interventions as needed, ensuring they remain aligned with the client's readiness and evolving needs. The emphasis is really on providing continuous support and flexibility to facilitate successful behavior change. So for data analysis, counselors can use a combination of quantitative and qualitative methods, as we've kind of just discussed. Quantitatively, you can use pre and post assessment scores, using statistical techniques to measure changes in motivation, readiness, and behavior. There's tools like paired t-test and regression analysis, which can help to determine the effectiveness of stage-matched interventions. This is more kind of for a research scientist, but qualitatively, thematic analysis can be conducted on client feedback and observational notes to gain insights into their experience and engagement with the counseling process. For example, we may identify themes in sessions such as denial or lack of awareness or minimization for a client who's in the pre-contemplation stage. With the contemplation stage, we may see themes of ambivalence or self-doubt or comfort of familiarity. The preparation stages may be more around anticipation of challenges, desire for support, and so on. So we can use this kind of analysis informally or formally to build a comprehensive understanding of how clients are progressing through the stages and the impact of our interventions, which will help us to, continue modifying our interventions and strategies. So research on the TTM highlights several key findings. As we've mentioned a few times already, these stage-matched interventions do lead to more effective counseling outcomes for those specific behaviors. Quantitatively, clients who receive interventions tailored to their stage of change demonstrate greater progress and engagement. For example, individuals who are in the preparation stage are more likely to move into the action stage when they have concrete strategies and support for taking action. Statistical analyses from various studies have reported significant increases in readiness and decreases in resistance when interventions align with the client's current stage. Qualitative findings also support the model's effectiveness. Research indicates that clients often feel more understood and motivated when counselors use these stage-specific approaches. Common themes include improved self-efficacy, reduced ambivalence, and a greater sense of support. Behavioral observations in these studies have shown that clients become more active and committed as they advance through the stages, which emphasizes that the model has an impact on sustained behavior change. So overall, the findings basically suggest that TTM provides a valuable framework for enhancing counseling effectiveness. Tailoring interventions, as we know, personalized individual care is best practice. So the implications for counseling practice, you've probably got some of them so far when we went over kind of how to identify where someone is at and what you can kind of do to help them. But we will go over kind of more specific ways that you can help people in the various stages here. So one of the primary takeaways from TTM is the importance of matching those interventions to their stage of change instead of the one-size-fits-all method. So we want to meet the client where they are. We want to, and this will help, like, build greater trust and rapport with clients. And also just make them more effective. So for example, during pre-contemplation stage, the therapist really should take on the role of kind of like a nurturing parent, showing empathy, using active listening, and going with the client's resistance rather than against it. During the contemplation stage, the therapist kind of has to take on the persona of a Socratic teacher, as they are now aiming to challenge the client's beliefs to gain those new insights about their behaviors. During the preparation stage, the therapist takes on the character of an experienced coach as they work with the client to develop a game plan that is executable when the client is ready. Lastly, in the stage of action and maintenance, the therapist will take on the role of a consultant as they provide guidance, advice, and support when needed. So TTM emphasizes the needs for flexibility and continuous reassessment because clients may move forward, backward, or just get stuck in between stages. So we really have to be adaptable and regularly evaluate where our clients are at and adjust techniques accordingly. Which could mean, like, shifting from motivational interviewing to relapse prevention as clients are, progress or revisiting earlier stages if setbacks occur. Another key implication is TTM's emphasis on self-efficacy. So empowering clients to build their confidence in their ability to change is really important here. This means setting those realistic, achievable goals and celebrating even the small victories, just to keep that momentum going. So we focus on their strengths and their past successes, which can really reinforce their belief in their capacity for change. So TTM also supports a client-centered and culturally sensitive approach, kind of in how it just is really about meeting the client where they're at. So we recognize the factors like cultural beliefs, personal values, and support systems influence change. And we're aware of how these factors will impact a client's readiness and tailor our methods to align with their unique background and experiences. So ultimately, TTM guides us to view change as a dynamic and individualized process, which just makes counseling more effective and change. So we really respect where clients are at. We use stage appropriate interventions. We promote self-efficacy, and this really helps to facilitate lasting and impactful behavior change. So cultural considerations are obviously critical when you're applying any counseling intervention. This one is no exception. So we want to understand the client's cultural background and values, which can profoundly influence their readiness to change, and what types of interventions will be effective. So one essential aspect is recognizing that concepts of health, change, and well-being are often shaped by cultural beliefs and norms. For example, in some cultures, discussing mental health may carry significant stigma, which can really impact a client's openness in the pre-contemplation or contemplation stage. We see this a lot in our work. We actually work with veterans, and because of that cultural stigma, the concept of change can be pretty threatening. So counselors really need to be culturally competent and sensitive when they're assessing a client's stage of change, like taking into account their cultural identity and how family roles and community expectations might influence their motivation and perception of change. Like if they're from a collectivist culture, decisions are often made within the family, or community considerations in mind. So in these cases involving the support of family members or integrating cultural rituals into the change process can be vital. It's also important to adapt communication styles to be culturally appropriate, of course. In some cultures, direct and confrontational approaches may be seen as disrespectful, and a more indirect relationship-focused style just might be more effective there. So we really want to tailor our communication and counseling techniques and just really make sure we're creating that safe space for clients to explore change. Additionally, the concept of self-efficacy can vary across cultures. In individualistic cultures, building personal confidence might be a primary focus, while in a collectivist setting, emphasizing that community support and shared success could be more motivating. So counselors really have to be aware of language differences or barriers and differences in expressing emotions, because this can impact how clients articulate their experiences and engage with therapy. So challenges and limitations. The TTM has many strengths, but it also comes with several challenges and limitations that are important to recognize. So one major challenge is that the model assumes a structured linear progression through the stages of change. In reality, change is messy and non-linear, right? You always see the memes of change is not a linear, progress isn't linear, healing isn't linear. Yeah, in reality, it's messy, non-linear. Clients may move back and forth between stages, skip stages entirely, or relapse multiple times before they really achieve that lasting change. That's all normal. But it's unpredictable. So it can make it difficult for counselors to really consistently apply those stage-specific interventions because they have to be just very on it to see, notice if their client is kind of changing or slipping into a different stage and really being adaptable. There's also another limitation of the heavy reliance on self-reported data. Assessing a client's stage of change often depends on their own perception of their readiness, which is easily influenced by factors like self-awareness or denial or social desirability. So this can lead to inaccuracies in determining the appropriate stage and subsequently tailoring effective interventions. Additionally, some clients may feel pressure to report progress or readiness that they don't actually feel, which obviously will complicate treatment planning. So cultural and contextual factors can also be a limitation. This model does emphasize flexibility, but it may not fully account for complex, cultural, socioeconomic, or environmental influences that really impact a person's ability to change. For example, individuals facing systemic barriers like poverty or discrimination may experience unique obstacles that the model doesn't really address adequately. So in these cases, interventions might need to be combined with a broader support system or some advocacy work. Another issue is the potential for oversimplification. So by categorizing behavior change into discrete stages, it might not capture the depth and complexity of a client's experience, especially when they're dealing with really severe or multifaceted issues like trauma or chronic mental illness. And critics argue that focusing too heavily on stages can kind of overlook the nuanced emotional and psychological processes that are really underlying behavior change. So there's also the challenge of sustaining progress and change over time. So TTM does provide strategies for moving through the stages, but it doesn't always offer guidance on the long-term maintenance, particularly in high-risk situations or environments that are not supportive of that change. So this really requires counselors to be very creative and integrate additional therapeutic models or relapse prevention strategies to reinforce and sustain that change. So overall, TTM is a valuable framework, but counselors do need to be mindful of these limitations and adapt their approach as needed to address the complexities of each individual's journey. So the Transtheoretical Model offers a dynamic, structured approach to understanding and facilitating behavior change. We've explored how it breaks down into those 6 stages and how really tailoring interventions to these stages can significantly enhance counseling outcomes. Basically, in summary, processes of change, when paired with their appropriate stages of change counterparts of TTM, this provides the best support for change. We've discussed some key research findings that demonstrate the effectiveness of these stage-matched interventions. Quantitative studies show measurable improvements in client engagement and behavior change, while qualitative data highlights the importance of feeling understood and supported throughout the process. These insights really underscore the model's practical value in various counseling contexts, from addiction recovery to mental health interventions. We've also talked about the limitations, and ultimately, TTM provides a robust framework that empowers counselors to meet clients where they are. And by being flexible, culturally sensitive, and committed to continuous reassessment, we can help clients navigate the journey of change more effectively. Just leave you with this statistic. So a study by Velleser et al. 1995 illustrates that 40% of individuals are in the pre-contemplation stage, while 40% are in contemplation and 20% are in preparation. So this suggests that for every behavioral change, 40% of individuals will not be ready for change. So therefore, treating every changer as if they are in the action stage does not adequately serve those contemplating change and ultimately leads to premature relapse. So I have our references here. I'm just speaking in the royal we for some reason, but it's just me. Yeah, thank you so much. I am looking forward to discussing this week in the chat, and I will meet you all there tomorrow.